Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV. We're in my home theater nook here in the studio today because I just got in a TV to review. This is the HiSense Roku TV, the R8F. We got in the 65-inch version, but they also have a 55 available. This is your standard LED, LCD television set, but it's very reasonably priced. This I would actually label as a budget offering, especially given the feature set and the size. And we're going to look at what you get here and what maybe some of the compromises are versus a more expensive television. Now, like my prior TV reviews, we're going to focus on the consumer experience here. We're going to look at watching movies and TV shows and playing video games and that sort of thing. And we're not going to go too far into the technical weeds because this is something that I think a lot of consumers are in the market for and they just want to see what it's all about. So we're going to be taking a deeper dive into this here in just a second, but I do want to let you know in the interest of full disclosure that the TV came in free of charge from HiSense. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, nor has anyone reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this TV is all about. So as I mentioned, the price point on these TVs is very reasonable. The 55-inch is $499. The 65-inch here is $699. The hardware is the same between the two sizes. So everything you see that we'll be covering on the 65-inch version here is applicable to the 55. They are both powered by Roku for their operating system. Roku, of course, is the market leader for set-top boxes. They've been around forever. They have the best selection of media apps out there. You get everything. You get Apple TV and Disney+, Netflix, Amazon, HBO, all the usuals. You also get just about all of the free services out there too, including Tubi and Pluto TV and Zumo, and then Roku has their own thing called the Roku channel here that is also available on their platform. You've got a lot of great stuff just built right into this. I really like Roku quite a bit, but they're not very good with apps and games. So you get a lot of great streaming content, but you're not going to get the games that you might see on Amazon or on Android TV devices. So just keep that in mind. It is mostly a media streaming platform. Now, the remote control for the TV is a standard Roku remote. This one, though, does not have the private listening feature built in like some of the premium Rokus have. So if you want to listen to your TV audio through headphones, you can plug some headphones into the back of the TV, or you can use the Roku app and have the TV stream audio to your phone or tablet, and then you can listen to that audio with headphones. It actually does a really good job of synchronizing audio. We've covered that feature before in the past. Now, you do have a lot of input options on the TV. There are 4 HDMI inputs, so you can plug in game consoles and more robust set-top boxes if you want. Those all support 60 hertz each, so you can get 60 frames per second video at 4K. They all support DRM as well, so you should be able to plug an Apple TV device, for example, into any of those ports and it will work without any issues. There's also a composite input for your old VCR and game consoles. Usually those composite inputs don't look all that great. This TV is no exception to that, so you might want to look at getting some scaling device to improve the quality of those legacy devices, but they do at least have the composite input on the back there. You also have 2 audio output options. You can use the optical out that's on there for connecting it up to a receiver or soundbar, although I recommend using HDMI because they do have one of the ports labeled as an audio return channel or ARC port. And what that will do is send audio out through that HDMI input to your soundbar or receiver. And basically anything the TV is playing back, it will output that audio through the HDMI. So you could switch from your Blu-ray player to a game console and it will just keep sending that audio out through that connector automatically. Now you might want to consider the audio output options on this set because its internal speakers are not spectacular. They're stereo downward firing. They are loud enough, but you don't get a good range of sound. They're kind of flat, so it's not good for music. You also don't get some of that room-filling spatiality you get out of a more expensive TV. So for example, upstairs I've got an OLED set that I bought a little while ago that cost a lot more than this one. The sound is great out of that TV, but because you're spending a budget price here, you're going to have some compromises get worked into the mix. audio quality on this set is one of those compromises, but it is very easy to get the audio out of the TV to a sound bar or to your home theater system. So I would suggest looking at that if you're not satisfied with the built-in audio quality. There's also a USB port on the back, so you can plug in your own media. Roku also allows some degree of streaming from mobile devices too, so you can do that through the Roku app. So you do pick up a lot of the benefits you would get with a regular Roku set-top box. There's also an antenna input, of course, because this is a federal mandate. And I unfortunately don't get anything over the air here where I live, so I won't be able to demo that for you, but I'll show you where you can go to tune TV on here, and they've integrated it quite nicely into the Roku interface. And the TV has some good networking options. I have mine right now connected via Ethernet. There is a gigabit Ethernet port in the back of the television, and you can hook up via Wi-Fi, and it supports wireless AC. So I think this will work well for all the 4K content you might be streaming. And if you're able to, I would strongly suggest plugging in via Ethernet. But if you've got a decent AC Wi-Fi router in your home, this should work well with that too. Now, the included base on the TV has two positions that you can use for installing it, at least here on the 65-inch version. And this was great for me because I have a very narrow stand that the TV is currently sitting on. It only goes 39 inches across, and it works fine with a 55-inch TV, but the 65s typically have bases that go beyond the 39 inches that I have for real estate here on my TV stand. And I was so excited about that because I didn't have to buy a new one to accommodate this new TV. I measured the end-to-end distance of the base at about 31 inches. That's roughly 78 centimeters. So there's a good chance your existing TV stand is going to work with the larger TV. And it was funny, I didn't see any reference to this in the product specs on Amazon, nor in some of the PR materials that they sent me. I was about to order a new stand to accommodate the TV, but I didn't have to do that. And that was a great hidden feature of this set. Now I want to talk about picture quality, and we're going to be shooting the screen with my camera here. So you're not going to see as good of an image as what I am seeing with my eyes here. So I'm going to try to do my best to explain the experience that I've had watching a bunch of stuff on this TV over the last couple of days. Right now we're playing a 60 hertz video from YouTube that I shot a while back, and I'm really, really pleased with the image quality for the price point. Now this, of course, is a backlit LCD panel. It's got one of those LED lights behind it. And typically with these kinds of televisions, you often get a lot of glow on the screen, especially in darker areas of the scene. And I'm not seeing that as much with this. And I'll show you some examples. We did some 8-bit gaming a little bit earlier. You can see those white letters are really in their own little isolated area. You're not seeing a lot of glow around those letters. Really nice backlight dimming control on this. The 60-inch set has 60 dimmable zones, so the backlight can be turned down in certain areas of the screen to give you a better black image in scenes that are dark. And I played Star Wars on it a little bit earlier. That looked pretty good as well. It's not going to rival an OLED TV that might cost 2 or 3 times as much as this will, but it was much better than I thought it would be. And so that was something that really impressed me with it. But in scenes where you have bright areas along with darker areas together, you will notice that the dark areas don't have as much contrast as they would on those more expensive OLED sets. I am totally ruined by my OLED upstairs, so it's hard to make comparisons anymore, but it's definitely going to be a difference. What I did do, though, to improve the contrast ratio was turn down the backlight. I brought it from 100 down to 50, and it didn't darken the image all that much, but it did bump up the contrast to something that looked better to me. But there are compromises, and you'll notice that in the corners of the set, the backlight isn't as uniform as it might be in the middle. It's a little bit more pronounced on my camera here than what I'm seeing, but it's still something you would notice in a scene like this one. The corners do tend to be a little bit dimmer than the rest of the set. But as you can see in the middle there, it's doing a pretty good job of keeping things isolated, especially in darker areas of the screen. So that's one thing to look for. Another issue to look for on this, again, given that it's a lower price set, is that the viewing angles are not great. So the best experience is going to be on this couch in front of the TV. But once you start to get off center, you will see the image quality decline. You'll see the backlight especially more pronounced when you're going off center like that. The image will get a bit washed out. So if you've got a big room and a big area in which you're going to gather around the TV, this one may not be ideal for that, given how the viewing angles are working here for me. This is largely a single couch kind of TV for the best experience. Now, as far as HDR compatibility is concerned, I tested Dolby Vision and HDR content, both with the streaming apps that are part of the Roku interface, along with devices that I attach to the TV. Everything worked just fine. You'll get notified when you're getting pushed into those HDR modes. It also supports Atmos audio on apps and content that support it. But remember, those speakers aren't that great, so you're not going to get a full Atmos experience out of this device. Now, if you hit the star button on your remote, you will get your options menu that will pop up. You've got some pretty basic settings here when it first appears for you, like making things brighter or darker or normal. You also have the picture settings area where you can more finely tune things. You're not going to get all of the features you would see in a high-end TV, but you can adjust things like tint, color, sharpness, and contrast, and of course the backlight level, which we can bring down a bit to get to that 50% mark that I said looked a little bit better. Again, your mileage on this stuff will vary based on your preferences, so you have to go in there and really kind of fine-tune it all, but you're not going to have the kind of calibration settings you would have on a higher-end television. But still, I think for most folks it should work out fine, although I do feel like you'll be spending a little bit more time in this menu adjusting things off from the default. So let's jump back to the home screen and see how gaming works on this TV. Again, you're not going to find many games through the Roku channel store here, so you're going to have to connect devices. And right now, I've got an analog NT Mini, which is a Nintendo clone console attached to HDMI 2. And as you can see here, as I put my cursor over that input, it will give you a preview of what is currently connected to it. So if we click on HDMI 2, it will take us to that input specifically. And now we've got the game on screen. And one of the things that's really impressed me again about this TV is that I'm not seeing a lot of glow in the black areas of the screen. It really does a nice job of keeping everything isolated. Now, to get the best gaming performance, you're going to want to enable game mode on the HDMI ports you're using for gaming. And to do that, you need to go over to Picture Settings and scroll all the way down to where you see game mode and make sure that is enabled. This will give you the least amount of input lag because when you're playing, especially a game like this one, you want your button pushes to get registered on screen very quickly. When you have game mode off, you will have more lag because there's more processing of the image. Now, using this analog NT Mini, I found that the input lag on the TV was identical to the Mini being plugged into my gaming monitor. I was seeing about 44 milliseconds all in, and we use my iPhone to measure this. We actually shoot the screen at 240 frames per second, hit a button, and then see how long it takes for that button to get registered on screen. So it doesn't appear to be any kind of lag penalty provided you're in game mode here. But the trade-off, as I mentioned, is the fact that scrolling backgrounds and fast-moving objects will appear a little bit more blurry on the set. That was certainly evident in a lot of these 8-bit games. I was really noticing it with Castlevania 3. Other games were not as pronounced, but still you would see a lot of that blurriness in the background, and that's something that a lower cost set will bring you as a result of some of the compromises you make. Now, you could offset that by turning game mode off and putting in some of that motion compensation, but that will add more input lag. So there's always these different choices that you have to make. I did run some modern games on it, though, on my PC. Here's No Man's Sky running at 4K. This game fared a little better just because it doesn't have as much fast action scrolling scenes. But if I was moving things around very quickly, I was noticing some motion blur with the image. And again, you really can't avoid that here. And overall, if you are playing on a smaller 1080p set, this is going to be a major improvement, especially as some of these 4K consoles come out. And again, you'll just have to adjust your input lag versus your image quality to get something that works best for you. And some games might do better in one mode versus the other. So let's move on now to power consumption. When the TV is off, you're looking at about a half a watt, typically less. When the TV is on at full brightness, you're just under 200 watts. Although if you turn that backlight down, you'll see it run a little bit lower than that. Peak brightness is 700 nits, and they rate the color at 94% at DCI-P3, if that's something that's important to you. Now, I'm sure you're curious about how well Plex performs on the TV set, because we do talk about them a lot here on the channel. They are, of course, an occasional sponsor here. I've got Star Wars: The Last Jedi. This is the 4K Blu-ray rip that I made. This, of course, is a pretty high bitrate film, HDR. So we're going to play this back real quick and see how it does. And I'm finding it's actually working. These films are now direct playing on the Roku platform. And it looks like whatever Roku is running inside this TV is one of the more higher end ones. So you can see the HDR has kicked in here and the film is starting up. One thing I've noticed with HDR on this set, especially some of these newer Star Wars films, is that they do appear to be a little bit washed out compared to my OLED, of course, but they do play back just fine. And the experience, though, is going to be better on the NVIDIA Shield, just because it can switch the TV into 24p mode for these films. And of course, you can make use of the full uncompressed Atmos soundtrack. So there's some things on the enthusiast side that are probably not going to be all that great here internally, but you can attach the things to improve the enthusiast experience, especially if you have those things already and you're on a budget for your TV set. So overall, from a picture quality standpoint, a usability standpoint, I think this is a really solid offering and certainly something worth taking a look at, just because the picture quality really did surprise me based on what my expectations were for the price point here. So no real reservations, but if you are a super high-end TV person, you're probably not looking at one of these anyhow. So there you go. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below, and until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold-level supporters, the Four Guys with Quarters podcast, Tom Albrecht, Rick Vestudo, Chris Allegretta, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.